Hello, everybody. Welcome back to East Coast Haunts. This is Sam.
And I am MK.
And today we are doing part one of I guess sort of like a little two-parter.
Yeah, they're like sister episodes.
Yes, sister episodes, if you will. And today, Mary Kate is going to be telling us all about The Conjuring.
Oh boy, you guys.
I do not know much about this case at all. I guess it's not really a case,
It is. It's a case of demonic infestation.
And I have to say, I love spooky movies, I love thriller movies, but where I draw the line, I think demonic possession movies freak me out. Anything that has to do with possession or demons, I don't watch. So I really don't know much about this story at all, except for the trailer where there's the clap clap.
Oh,
that's the only thing I know about it.
That's based off of a true event.
Oh Lord, the whole movie is, right?
The whole movie is. They did take a little bit of creative liberty.
Okay, as Hollywood does.
But I do have to say that this movie, I'm not a huge wimp anymore. I was when I was a kid when it came to horror movies.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid was an autobiography.
It really was. But this movie had me watching the entire, 90 minutes?
Wow.
Through my fingers.
Zooey mama.
Zooey mama.
Well, I am very excited. I want you to get started. I know there's a lot of trigger warnings because this is a very disturbing story, so you want to get those out of the way first?
Yes, I do. So I want to give a quick trigger warning. I'll mention it again before these specific parts come up, but there is animal cruelty, animal death, sexual assault. So if you're sensitive to any of those things, I'll let you know again right before the part comes up, but maybe just skip ahead a few seconds because some of the things that happen in this case are wildly disturbing. So without further ado, I think I'm just going to get right into it. Are you ready?
I think I'm ready as I'll ever be.
I think after we do this episode, we're going to have to watch the movie together.
Oh, absolutely.
So maybe that'll be another Patreon episode coming out.
I'm terrified, but I will watch it.
We got to do it.
With the lights on. We have to watch it before 6 p.m. before it gets dark.
All right, that's fair. I actually don't think I'd want to watch this. And I was going to watch it last night in preparation.
No.
When you were gone, and then I decided
against it.
I'm good.
Yeah, no.
I'm okay.
This is not something to watch alone.
It is not. So, without further ado, this is the true story behind The Conjuring.
Let's get into it.
So, this was an active haunting that became violent when the Perron family moved into a farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island.
Okay.
And these events inspired a collection of 8 movies, and they were released through New Line Cinema after a very famous couple contacted the movie studio. Do you know who that was?
Was it Ed and Lorraine?
It sure was. Okay. It sure was. So, they are pretty big characters in this case, I would say. They have a decently big role, I would say. It also inspired the eldest daughter of the Perron family, Andrea, to write a 3-part book series called House of Darkness, House of Light. And again, I do want to put a little disclaimer here that there is a lot of differing information about this case depending on your source. And I think it's just because it's become so fictionalized in Hollywood and it's become a ghost story. So a lot of the stuff, depending on which accounts you use, have different information. So I'm going to be basing my analysis of this case on excerpts from the book and a podcast that I listen to called Astonishing Legends. And if you guys really want a deep dive into this case, I'm talking 5 hours worth of material. They do it so beautifully and they really don't skip over any details. So go check them out.
Can I cut in for a second? Okay, so I do have a quick question.
Yes.
When does this story start?
This story starts... I'm going to go back a little bit before they actually move into the house.
Okay.
But they move into the house in 1971.
Okay, because I just thought it was kind of interesting how you were saying Ed and Lorraine reached out to, New Line Cinema or whatever it was called, and then they had, an 8 different movies, and also the oldest daughter had a 3-part book series. So I just thought it was interesting right off the bat that I think doubters could definitely say, they definitely got that money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they definitely monetized as much as they possibly could.
I'm going to mention this again.
Okay.
The Perron family declined all profits from the movie.
Really?
Yes.
What about from the book?
Well, that's just Andrea. I don't think she has a very specific purpose in mind for the money.
Okay.
Which I think is going to be a little bit surprising to people, but
I'll keep my doubts out of the way for now, and I'll let you explain.
Do have to say, looking at this case, I don't think this is a hoax.
Okay.
I really don't. I think this is a genuine haunting, which is why I think they had that much material to make into
a successful franchise. Yeah.
Yes. Technically, the first movie of The Conjuring is the only one that's really and truly, like, focused around
based on a
case.
True story, yeah.
Well, no, actually, Annabelle is based on a true story.
No, right.
And then there's one that is the Ennefield Phantom.
Okay.
Or Poltergeist.
Okay.
So, now, let's get into... I'm going to introduce you to the family.
Okay.
So, we have our patriarch, Roger Perron, who's the father.
Got it.
Carolyn Perron is his wife and the mother of 5 daughters.
Wow.
Andrea, who was 9 years old at the time they moved into the house. Nancy, Christine, Cynthia, and April, who was just a little baby by the time they moved in.
That's a lot of kids.
A lot of daughters. It kind of reminds me of our family, where they were like, maybe we'll get 1 boy. And
I know.
Got 6
and they keep trying.
So, back in 1964, the Perron family bought a house in Cumberland, Rhode Island. This is a little bit away from Harrisville, where the actual house that the hauntings that we're going to talk about take place.
Okay, so they move into this house in Rhode Island, but it's not the house.
It's not the house.
Okay.
But you'll come to find that even when they're living in this other house, tragedy and, like, a little bit of trauma seems to follow this family. Mm-hmm. So in 1969, the family adopted a puppy. And it was a Basenji puppy, which I don't know if you know anything about that brand.
Basenji. That brand of dog.
I don't know if you know anything about that breed of dog.
Yes.
But they can't bark.
Oh.
They're like the little
I'm trying to get one of those.
Me too.
Just kidding.
They have like a little curly tail.
I would definitely want a dog that barks because I feel like it offers like protection.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Well, especially for them because they're getting haunted by demons. Like,
I know.
The dog could like alert them.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But this was so weird. This part is so weird to me. But when Roger brought home this puppy, Carolyn was like, this is a special dog. It needs a special name. So she picks up the puppy, raises it to the sky, like lifts her head to the sky, and says, Bathsheba is this dog's name.
Is that a name from the Bible or something?
Bathsheba, if it sounds familiar, is a name that's going to come up in this case again.
Okay. That's not a cute, no offense.
It's not.
Bathsheba, come here. Like,
they called it Sheba.
I was going to say, that's way too many syllables.
Which is kind of cute. I think
Sheba.
Shiba
Like Shiba Inu?
Yeah.
Okay, Bathsheba.
Unfortunately, and I'm going to give a little trigger warning here because this is not going to end up well for this dog.
I was going to say, obviously the dog is going to die.
Yes.
I can tell that from a mile away. Not to laugh.
So, basically what happened was one day the kids went out for a walk and they brought the dog out, and the dog was a very obedient dog, so they let it run next to them while on the leash, but none of them were holding the leash.
Okay.
And a group of neighborhood kids rode by on their bikes or ran by or whatever, and the dog got excited and bolted across the street. And it made it to the other side fine, but then Andrea, who again is the oldest daughter, she panicked and tried to call the dog back to her. Yeah. And the dog ran out into the street, and its leash got caught in the wheels of a car.
Oh no!
Yeah, and
poor Bathsheba.
I know, and unfortunately, the police, or fortunately, I guess, the police happened to be there, and they had to put the dog down. Yeah. By shooting it in front of.
Oh dear God, that is horrific.
So
that's really bad.
Obviously, that's gonna mess with their psyche a little bit, I would think.
Yeah. Wait, can I pause you?
Yes.
Like, I know no one asked for this, but do you remember how I saw my current dog, Kiwi, run into a car? My dog, I remember I was in like 7th or 8th grade, and I was walking like up the hill by my house, and like my dog came out, and we don't have an electric fence or anything.
Oh.
And then a car was like speeding by, and for some reason our dog like is very attracted to cars. Like, she loves them. She will run. Like, if she, that's why we have to keep her on a leash like all the time. But she saw the car and she got excited. She ran into the tire. Like, it wasn't really even this person's fault. They should have been going slower.
Well,
but
yeah.
I literally saw her get hit by a car. It was, but she lived. It was actually weird. Like,
she's still kicking today.
Yeah. And all she had to get a couple stitches in her leg, and that was it. But it was the most traumatizing thing in the world. Like, so I'm very. It's funny now because she lived. Yeah. But like, had she died, that would have been the most traumatizing thing.
Traumatizing.
So all
that's
that
a
to
pet
say,
that you love, like a member of your family.
I know, and the fact that they had to watch the dog get shot because it was obviously in lots of pain. I mean, that is horrible.
It's really.
So enough about me. Sorry. Anyway,
it's okay.
Just a fun little tidbit.
Yeah, to lighten the mood.
Yeah.
But following that, there were a series of events in this neighborhood that made Carolyn think that maybe this wasn't the best neighborhood for her.
Okay. Bad vibes.
Yes. So there started a series of attacks by neighborhood kids who were their right next door neighbors.
Okay.
Like, they literally lived
The
right
kids
next
were
door.
attacking?
Yes. And we're not talking like throwing rocks at you know, people passing by or like being typical neighborhood nuisances. We're talking like extreme violence and sexual assault.
Kids?
Yes.
Were doing this?
Yes.
I mean, was this place known for having like shady characters?
I mean, not really. It was rural Rhode Island.
Yeah, so I would think that the people probably didn't even live that close to each other. It's probably like large, sprawling, typical suburban neighborhoods.
So obviously, after the incident with the dog, the family decided that they needed to like decompress and, you know,
if all this
put
other
some joy back into their kids' lives.
So they get another dog.
No. God. But they actually, now that you bring that up, they do have 4 cats.
Okay.
So that is
a lot of cats.
Something to think about.
It's a lot of dander.
So they go off on a family vacation. Woo-hoo, okay. Fun time. Yeah. I don't know where they went. But they return home to find their house completely trashed.
Oh,
like, ransacked.
Like, it had been broken into?
Yeah.
Okay.
But not robbed. Just
messed up.
Completely torn apart.
So someone was messing with them.
Yes. So they had a fridge, like a lot of people do, down in their basement that had like stockpiles of frozen meat.
Okay.
Someone had gotten into...
Unplugged it.
And unplugged it.
Oh, God.
Literally strewn the meat around the house so that it would rot and go bad.
Oh, that is vile.
Imagine
the smell
of this house. So
wow.
Then
why?
In addition to that, 2 of their 4 cats were missing.
Okay. Oh no.
1 was found hiding in a bush.
Okay.
And again, trigger warning. This is where another animal violence thing comes in. A neighborhood kid came up to them as they're like assessing the damage and confessed that he saw their next door neighbor trashing the house and that he also saw him beat the other cat to death with a baseball bat.
Why?
I don't know.
What was the reason behind any of this? Because this isn't even like paranormal. This is just like criminal.
This is borderline. This kid should get checked for.
He's gonna be a serial killer.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my Lord.
These poor parents, like, obviously Carolyn goes over next door and confronts the boy and his mom, and this is a typical case of the mom being like, my poor little pumpkin, you couldn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, right.
Come on.
Parents like that drive me crazy.
Me too. Like, make your kid have some responsibility, some accountability.
Your child beat a cat to death with a baseball bat. Like, no.
Maybe we should get this kid some help.
Yes. Yeah.
So, anyway, poor Andrea then has now seen her dog die, and also has now lost one of her cats.
And their home was, like, totally violated.
Yes. So, obviously, she's feeling some type of way and devises, like, a revenge plan against this kid. So she waited until he, like, went out walking on the street, and she, like, violently attacked him.
Oh!
Which, like, I don't condone violence, but
it was a little bit warranted here.
Anyone who deserves it is this kid.
I know, seriously.
And eventually some person walking by pulled her off and sent her home. And in her own words from her book, she was like, I would have killed him.
Whoa! Wasn't she, like, 9 at this point?
Yeah, she was young.
I bet she had been through a lot for a 9-year-old.
She really probably had. I am not judging Andrea in the slightest, because if someone killed my cat or pet of any sort, no, I'd be furious.
It would be on sight.
So then Carolyn, being like the nice little crafty mom that she was, had made this beautiful rock garden out in their front yard.
Okay.
And in the center of it was this large rock that she just thought was nice. But I guess to, like, passers-by, it looked like a tombstone.
Okay.
So their other next-door neighbor, so not the, like, violent kid.
Okay.
Their other next-door neighbor, who I guess lived on, like, a lower elevation than them. And they kind of, like, lived above them.
Got it.
So they had, like, a driveway going down towards the road where I guess this other house was. And he got in his car, turned on the ignition, put the car into drive, and immediately had a massive heart attack.
Oh.
So, dies immediately in the truck. His foot was unfortunately on the gas when that happened.
Okay.
So, the truck goes up the hill and crashes into the tombstone, quote unquote.
Oh.
And that was when the neighborhood started to accuse Carolyn of being a witch.
I see.
So...
Okay, wow. I mean, that was kind of a big logic jump for the neighbors.
For, like...
Especially when he...
And she had no reason to kill this man.
It is weird, though, that his foot stayed on the gas and was able to go up a hill.
Over the...
Okay.
The steering wheel.
That's so sad.
I know. Isn't that horrible?
Yeah, but it's also not a reason to accuse someone of being a witch. Like, those just don't correlate to me. But okay.
But obviously after that, Carolyn was like, I want to move out. Yeah. The family needs to get out of here.
Fresh start. Yeah, it sounds like the neighborhood was just not a good place to be.
Yeah. So one day, Carolyn is waiting for Andrea to be done with a music lesson. And she's just, like, perusing old magazines and stuff in the waiting room, and she picks up an old newspaper. And she comes across a listing for a 200-acre farm with a 9-bedroom farmhouse and barn. Guess the price.
This is back in the 70s. I don't know, like 100,000?
200 acres of land, a 14-room, 9-bedroom farmhouse.
Well, they also want to get rid of it for, like, dirt cheap because the person probably knows that it's haunted. I'm going to say 100,000.
75,000.
Wow. I thought I was going low with 100,000.
I know.
I was nervous that I went too low.
You thought you were lowballing it?
Wow.
So Carolyn calls the realtor that night, and she's like, I am interested. She does not tell these people that her and her husband have absolutely no equity in the house that they're currently living in. They have no savings saved up to move whatsoever.
Okay. Because they just moved here not too long ago.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Like a few years ago. And so the next day, she calls over a friend and she's like, watch the kids. I'm going up to the house for a visit with the realtor. Okay. She doesn't even tell Roger.
Okay.
So the realtor takes her up there, and Mr. Kinnian, who is the previous owner, is there, and he's selling this place.
Oh, he's probably so psyched.
Yeah. He's like, it's a wonderful place to raise a family, and, like, the house is gorgeous. It's like, it has all this history. It was rumored to be part of, like, the Underground Railroad. And Carolyn said that from the beginning she was drawn to this house. Like, she really just felt like the universe wanted her to get this house. So Mr. Kinnian was like, if you put some sort of deposit down on it now, I won't sell it to anyone else.
Yeah, he's probably like I'll give it to you for $5. He's probably like, get me out of here.
So she writes a $500 check as a deposit and goes home and tells Roger. So then he's like, what the hell have you gotten us into?
Yeah.
Because they have no business moving out. Like, financial business.
Yeah, financial business,
right.
Yeah.
So Carolyn's like, please, just you and the girls need to see this house. It's absolutely perfect for us. There's plenty of room for the girls to play.
Yeah,
this is
bedrooms.
A 9-bedroom house.
Yeah.
And so every single member of the family goes up to visit this house, and they all report feeling like they were at home. Just like,
you know when they say,
like,
if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, I'll let you continue before I give any thoughts.
So Roger has this moment of, I don't want to say clarity, because in hindsight, it was probably
a warning.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he has this moment where he goes back down to like a creek that's right behind the house, and he like takes his feet off. Nope, doesn't take his feet off.
His place really is haunted.
The disembodied feet make a reappearance.
So let me get a little more comfortable.
Let me slip into something a little more comfortable. He takes his shoes off and he steps into this creek, and he's like,
let the dogs breathe.
Yeah, he's letting them go for a little swim. So his dogs are just in this creek.
Swimming in the creek.
And he's like, we need to buy this house.
Okay. Weird, but okay.
So then it's literally like a scene out of
a whirlwind romance with the house.
Yes, but like it's a scene out of like a coming of age film. Okay. So like all of the daughters are like, we have to help mommy and daddy get our dream house. Okay. So they start like lemonade stands. They start selling like pot holders. They start like,
ladies, that's not gonna do much.
They start their own business, and well, I mean,
girl
honestly,
bosses.
It's $75,000. Like it probably made a little bit of a dent.
That's true.
Don't you think?
That's true.
So. Anyway, they end up raising the money and they buy the house.
No.
So Mr. Kinnian, who's again the previous owner, every single member of this family still loves him. They were like,
to this day, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Like they still defend him. They're like, he didn't do anything wrong, because in Rhode Island
there wasn't that law.
No,
of, like,
you do not have to disclose paranormal activity.
Yeah, but I don't know if I would want to knowingly lead a young family.
I wouldn't either.
Into living in a house full of demons.
But you have to remember that these hauntings only became violent when they moved in. Okay,
it's weird.
So he had never experienced anything violent. Okay. He had only experienced like doors opening on their own.
Okay.
Like,
okay, so little
pictures
things.
falling off the wall. Like,
things that could be explained away.
Footsteps, whatever. So he, on the first day that they're in the house, welcomes the family with fresh baked cookies, and he's out there waiting. And they bought the house in like, I want to say November, so he's out there waiting with like hot chocolate, and he's just like welcoming them. And he finally hands over the keys to the house, and he pulls Roger aside, and he says one little phrase that Roger like dismisses.
Yeah.
But he turns to Roger and he's like, leave the lights on at night.
That is the most ominous sentence that I think could have been said. Because what does that mean?
I swear to God, that would have made me reconsider the sale entirely.
Yeah, too bad he waited until after he'd handed over the keys. Papers are signed.
So, that being said, let's talk about the house a little bit.
Oh, dear God, yes.
So, it's referred to as the farmhouse or the Arnold Estate. And the Arnold Estate, we'll get into it a little bit, but it was owned
by Arnold.
By
trademark.
Like 8 generations of a family named the Arnolds.
Okay.
So, there's 14 rooms total. So there's plenty of room for everyone to have their own room, right?
Yeah. Even for a family of... Oh, no?
No.
Why?
So Nancy and Christine roomed together, Cindy and April, and then Andrea was the only kid that had her own room.
The oldest always gets that preferential treatment.
What can I say?
Not us middle children.
Us oldest children, we have our perks.
Yes.
We're also, the guinea pigs.
Yeah. This is true. Yeah, you deserve your own room, honestly.
So, the house was built in 1736.
Wow.
But it wasn't the original structure on the property.
Okay.
The house that was existing when the parents moved in.
Right.
It was built on top of an existing cellar and, foundation, though.
Okay.
And the cellar was the location of extremely active paranormal occurrences.
What do you mean this? Oh, the cellar.
The cellar.
Cellar.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you meant cellar. Like
no, like the basement.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So, like I said, the Arnold family owned this house, and it was passed down through 8 generations.
Wow.
And this family had a rough go of things.
Okay, not surprising.
So, again, this is another trigger warning for suicide and eventually, in a few seconds, sexual assault.
God, there are just a lot of horrible things happening.
Yes, like, there's no wonder that this place was haunted.
Yeah.
Really. So, Mrs. John Arnold, who was 93 years old,
Aww.
hung herself.
Oh, wow.
From the rafters in the barn.
Okay.
93 years old.
How did she even, like, have the strength? Well, I don't want to say that, but, like...
But, no, you're right.
Like I would think she'd be frail at 93.
Yeah.
Why do they know why she killed herself?
No, they don't. There's speculation. There's also no record of a Mrs. John Arnold dying by suicide at the age of 93.
Okay.
There is a record of a Mrs. Arnold dying at 50 years old from suicide.
Okay.
So I'm not
maybe
sure.
Something got mixed
but there is also another record of a Mrs. Arnold at 93 dying, but not in this house and not by suicide.
I mean, if this stuff happened in the 1700s, I'm sure stuff got mixed up along the way.
I think so. And if you, like, trace it back, then there's, like, a couple of Arnold families that lived in the area, so this could have been, like, a mix of
all
some
those
different
stories.
Occurrences. But without a doubt, there were some suicides that occurred in the house and in the barn.
Okay, got it.
So, Johnny Arnold supposedly hung himself in the attic of the farmhouse.
Okay.
So, like, in the actual house. And then, on property, there was the rape and murder of an 11-year-old girl named Prudence Arnold. And
oh my God.
It's still technically unsolved, but a lot of people think it was the farmhand who was 22 years old.
Oh my, that is disgusting.
I know. Horrific.
No wonder they sold this house. There's probably so much horrible energy.
Yeah. Energy and memories.
Vile, yeah.
There's at least 2 records of children drowning in the creek behind the house.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then in the 1800s, either 2 or 4 men, depending on what source you use, sought shelter from an impending snowstorm, so they crawled in through the window of an old blacksmith store that was on Arnold Estate property. It doesn't exist anymore, but back in the day it did. And they were evidently trapped and froze to death, and they were literally frozen solid like a block of ice.
Oh my God.
So they were only found in the springtime when they began to thaw and neighbors smelled the decay.
Oh my God.
So that, to me, is kind of important because of a detail that's going to come up later.
Okay.
So the smell is something that's going to come up
Keep
later.
it in the back of our minds?
Yes.
Okay.
So, with that, we're going to talk about move-in day.
Oh, Lord.
So it was the first week of January 1971, and there were intense snowstorms blowing through the area.
Okay.
So Andrea is being a helpful little kid, like you are on moving day, and she's carrying a box that her father had given her to the kitchen while Mr. Kinnean packs up the rest of his belongings. So he's in the dining room. She has to walk past the dining room to get to the kitchen.
Okay.
And she notices that there's a man in the dining room who she doesn't recognize, and she knew that Mr. Kinnean's son was helping him move out, but this was not him.
Okay.
And she said that he was dressed weird. There's no record of what weird means.
Probably old-timey, I would assume, right?
Probably. Yeah. So she says hi to him, and he does not respond. He just keeps staring at Mr. Kinnean, like,
ooh, okay.
and has, like, a quirky smile on his face.
Ooh, I don't know if I like a quirky smile.
I know. So then, in turn, each of the other 4 sisters, or I guess probably not April because she was a baby, but come in with more and more boxes, and each and every one says hi to this guy.
Okay.
So, obviously, Andrea asks Carolyn, she's like, who is the guy in the dining room? She's like, Mr. Kinnean? And they're like, no,
the other guy.
She's like, I don't see another guy. So, all of the 4 sisters in succession saw him in different phases of manifestation. So this is weird. So when Andrea walked by, he was like solid and looked like a man.
Yeah.
Then the next girl comes by, who's like, I think it was Cindy. She sees him as like a man still, but like he might have looked a little like fuzzy around the edges.
Okay.
The next girl comes in, maybe Nancy, and she's like, why is that guy like sort of translucent?
Oh no, okay.
And then Christine comes in, and as she's walking by, he disappears completely before her eyes.
Oh wow.
So, you know how sometimes when people move into haunted houses, they're like, oh, it took a while for it to ramp up?
Yes.
It started immediately.
Literally
the second. But they all say that when they were touring the house and getting ready to move in, they did not see one single paranormal activity.
Well, it sounds like the spirits or the demons or whatever they are were on their best behavior to get them to move into the house, and then once they were there, they're like, sweet, let's
young
go.
Blood. The young blood are ruling the halls again.
Yes, all these many similar themes throughout. Yeah.
So, first night there, Cindy is sleeping in her room, and I believe she shared a room.
See, I know I was saying like, oh, the middle child never gets like the oldest child, of course she got her own room, but honestly, I wouldn't want to have my own room in this house.
No, me either, and I think there's a reason that they... Well, also, at the time, some of them were like 5 years old.
Yeah, of course.
So, Cindy, who's sharing a room with April, who's the little baby, walks into Andrea's room, and she's like, hey, can I sleep with you tonight? Aww. And Andrea's like, yeah, what's up? So Cindy crawls into bed with her, and she's like, I hear voices in my bedroom. And Andrea's like, how many voices? And she's like, I don't know, but a whole lot of them, and they're all standing around my bed, chanting from different directions. And
why was she so calm?
And she, first of all, that's so cute that she went to her older sister, but like immediately I would be in my parents' bed.
Yeah.
22 years old, so.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, no question. So, chanting in different directions?
Yes, like surrounding her bed. So they're coming from all around her bed. And she's like, they're all saying the same thing. So obviously the natural question is...
It's going to be something in Latin. What are they saying is the question, I'm sure, right?
There are 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
What does that mean?
I don't know. But every night, so the Perron family lived here for 10 years. Cindy heard it every night.
They stuck it out for 10 years?
10 years.
Wow.
But you'll see why they stayed that long.
Okay.
Like, it's not crazy that
there are 7 dead soldiers buried in the walls.
Yep.
Okay.
So, in her memoir, Andrea claims that there are at least 12 spirits in the house, and at least 2 of those were malevolent.
Okay.
One of them, they identified, quote unquote, as Mrs. Arnold, who would she took a particular liking to Cindy.
Aww.
And would kiss her on the forehead and like tuck her in it.
Is this the 93-year-old Mrs. Arnold?
They think.
Oh, that is so sweet.
But this is gonna come back, so
okay.
it gets weird. It gets a little tangled.
Okay.
Like I said, different sources say different
okay.
things. So then, before we work our way up to the bigger occurrences, let's talk about some of the smaller occurrences that are still notable. So, it was said that the house was always cold.
Okay.
Which, for a house built in 1736...
And it had, 14 rooms?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was probably hard to
Probably no central heating.
Yeah.
But abnormally cold. Like, even in the summer, they were always cold in this house. And especially Carolyn was always cold.
Okay.
And they would hear footsteps and bangs, your typical paranormal signs.
Of course, classic.
The upstairs was particularly active, which was the site of the apparent suicide that we talked about.
And you said the cellar too, right?
Yes. Okay, so the upstairs and the cellar were both
very active.
But the spirit that they think was Johnny, who was the man who hung himself in the attic, was identified and nicknamed Manny by the daughters, and he would play with them and move their toys around in a friendly manner, so they kind of saw him as a friend.
Yeah, he sounds nice.
Yeah. And then Carolyn would hear sweeping from upstairs, and she would go to see, like, which of her daughters picked up a broom, and she would find an idle broom and a pile of dust, and she would ask her daughters,
like, who did that?
And none of them took responsibility for it.
Wow, okay. So far, they sound very pleasant.
Exactly. So, like, I see why they didn't immediately move out, you know? But a weird thing about this house was that light and sound were extinguished in, like, weird ways.
Okay.
So they would be standing in a room, and depending on, like, what day it was, or, like, different occasions, you would either be able to, like, stand in a bedroom and scream and no one would be able to hear you, or you could stand in that same bedroom, whisper something, and it could be heard down the hall.
Wow.
This is, like,
really just depending
weird.
On the day?
Just, like, depending on the different occurrence.
That's weird.
Isn't that weird?
That's very weird.
And light was kind of the same way. So, like, one day you'd walk into a room and it was, like, super bright and cheerful in there. And then, like, the next sunny day you'd walk in and it was, like, dark for whatever reason.
Weird.
Very odd.
Weird. This is weird stuff.
So then Andrea refers to different doors in the house as having quote-unquote personalities.
Ah.
So some doors would rattle, some would, like, swing open, and even if they propped up, like, a chair or something to keep it closed, it would still push the chair out of the way and open.
Okay.
Some would remain closed even if they tried to open it. And the girls, like, kind of saw the doors as almost like pets.
Yeah. Oh, wait, as pets. That's kind of cute.
Which was kind of cute. Like, they had different, like, names for the doors and whatever.
Well, I didn't have much luck with their actual pets, so...
Yeah.
At least these ones are doors.
Well, hold on. So, the pantry door in particular was quite a character.
Okay.
And not a good one.
Oh.
The pantry door, which was, like, adjacent to the cellar.
Oh, of course.
Right. So, it would swing open on its own, sometimes violently, and every time it opened, they described a putrid smell as, like, the smell of death.
Oh, Lord. See,
like, that would make me lose my appetite.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if there's any door that I wouldn't want to smell like death, it would be the pantry door.
Probably.
Wow, okay.
So, fun little story, happy ending here. They got a new dog.
Yay!
Named Jennifer Rebecca.
What is with these names? That is a whole child's name. Jennifer Rebecca, come here! What's your dog's name? Jennifer Rebecca. I'd be like, are you okay?
I was listening to the Astonishing Legends podcast at work, and it actually made me bust out laughing in my cubicle.
Jennifer Rebecca. Like, that's supposed to be funny, right? Like,
I think so.
That's hilarious.
But you've got 5 girls naming a dog, obviously.
Jennifer Rebecca!
Jennifer Rebecca!
A compound name that is bizarre. Well, anyway. I'm glad they got a new one.
And then they had the 3 other cats from the house, the old house. So they would avoid certain areas of the house, and there was one hallway that the cats and the dog would, like, steer clear of.
Wow.
And Roger tested this by, like, cooking up, like, a nice steak and putting it in the hallway, and the dog would not even go near it.
That's great. That's how, because dogs are so food motivated.
Yes.
Like,
and this was a German Shepherd too, so, like,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay. So, I would not be stepping into that hallway after seeing that.
I know. And the cats refused to come in through the front door. Weird.
How would they come in?
Side door.
Through the chimney.
Or they'd have to, like, carry them in.
Okay.
But the family got used to the occurrences, and this is kind of funny, but the spirits would hide objects to, like, cause fights between the girls.
That's hilarious.
So, like, obviously Andrea would be like, Cindy, I know you took my top. And Cindy would be like, no, I didn't. Like,
next time
I know you took my nail clippers.
Yeah.
And, like, then Roger one time actually had a pair of nail clippers that went missing, and he was, like, furious about it. And then one of the girls was like, everything goes missing in this house. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta chill out.
This man's was very serious about his nail clippers. He had to trim the dogs.
My dad gets serious about his nail clippers.
It must be a guy thing. It must be a guy thing.
Yeah,
because they probably don't know where to buy them if they lost theirs. So like Facts. The ones they have are the ones for life.
Facts. And then there were generalized hauntings in this house too. There was disembodied crying and babies wailing, which is like
that would be annoying as hell.
Imagine going to check on your daughter and she's not crying, but you're hearing like you're like, oh, April's at it again. You go and April's fast asleep.
That's crazy.
Horrifying. Severe cold spots.
Okay.
And then, like, I don't know how to phrase this, but, like, premonitions that bad things happened in certain areas in the house. Like, especially, I think it was Cindy would be walking and she'd be like, something bad happened in that closet.
Almost like the kid from Sixth Sense. Like, yeah. Like obviously she wouldn't see anything, but she could just, like, tell.
She was just like, there's
something bad
there.
happened. Okay.
Yeah. And this is the one thing that Andrea won't talk about.
Okay.
But she said that there was a particularly evil male spirit in a house with 6 girls.
It's always a male spirit.
And she just, like, left it up to that. She said it's, like, actually too traumatizing to talk about because of, like, the things that this spirit did.
Oh, so, Lord. Okay. Yeah. I don't even want to imagine.
I don't either. I don't want to think about that. But once while the girls were at school, the older girls were at school, Carolyn laid April down to take a nap, and then she began to feel nauseous. So she did what anyone would do. She, like, laid her head down for a few seconds to collect herself, and when she opened her eyes, it was dark outside, and, like, several hours had passed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the clock, like an old family heirloom clock,
of course,
had stopped when she laid down. So, like...
So it said... So if she went to bed... If she laid down at 3, it still said 3?
It still said 3, but it was, like, 6.
Okay, that's weird.
Weird, right? So, they had this old family heirloom clock, and they brought it from their other house. They never had an issue, but it kept stopping in the new house.
Okay.
And it would always stop at 5:15 a.m.
Oh.
Weird.
Well, now next time I wake up at that time, I'm going to be freaked out.
Yeah. And they always said, like, time really didn't conform to, like, the normal rules in this house.
Well, it sounds like light and sounds didn't either.
Yeah.
It was like a free-for-all.
Freaky, right? So it definitely goes against, like, the natural
ways of the world.
Nature of things, yeah. So then one time when April was older, she was upstairs taking a nap, and the entire family was downstairs and, like, together in the same room.
Okay.
And April came storming down the stairs, and she was like, who just shook me awake, and why were you so violent about it? And everyone was like...
We were all down here.
Yeah. Creepy.
Oh, that is scary.
That is freaky, right? So then one day, Cindy was running late to school, and the bus was outside, and this bus driver was, like, not about to wait for her to get whatever she needed to get. So she had forgotten her books upstairs. So she was running, and she took a shortcut through this hallway that she typically avoided for whatever reason. She just got bad vibes from it because she needed to get the books in a hurry. But she ran into a figure emerging from the cellar. So I guess this was the hallway that the cellar opened into.
Okay.
And she collided with it hard, so it was, like, solid.
Okay.
And it knocked her back, and she said immediately she was freezing, and she had this, like, horrible smell in her nostrils.
Oh, God.
And it caused her to go into, like, a convulsive coughing fit.
Oh, my Lord.
So she made it onto the bus on time because all of her sisters were like, no, she's coming. Like, please wait a few more minutes.
That was nice of them.
And she called Carolyn an hour later, was like, come pick me up.
Wow.
So she was completely drained of energy, and she slept for the next 2 days.
Wow.
She had no other symptoms, so this isn't like a flu, and she felt totally fine before this. And people think that it took Cindy's energy...
sucked her energy out of her.
Yeah, possibly to manifest. Like,
ooh! Okay.
The other girls reported that they would have a great day at school. They'd be, like, happy to come home and tell their mom all about their day, like, as you do. And within minutes of being home, they would become, like, depressed and sad and, like, just, like, no energy.
Oh,
like, all they wanted to do was sleep.
Wow.
This part's really freaky. So,
well,
one winter, so this is weird.
Okay.
Because it's winter time. they had an infestation of flies.
Gross.
And they seemed to target Roger. They would, like, literally have choreographed attacks on him.
It's giving Pigpen.
It's literally, a little bit. And he became obsessed with the eradication of these flies. And exterminators they called in couldn't find a source, they couldn't kill them. And eventually they hung up fly paper, and that was, like, mildly successful.
Ew.
But Roger, during his pursuit of, like, killing these flies, literally became obsessed with them and, like, disconnected from the family, like, would not join the family at dinner because he's like, I have to, find a way to get
eradicate the flies. Ew.
So that's
creepy.
It's creepy, but it's also, like, I'm sure a tactic that a demon would use to, like, isolate one member of the family, particularly one that's probably seen as the strongest, right?
Absolutely.
And then pick them off one by
one. Oh, that's scary. I didn't even think of that.
So then, oh my god, Carolyn, who, if you remember I said, is cold all the time.
Right.
She moves into this house, whatever. Every single fireplace is boarded up.
Interesting.
Weird.
Very weird.
I've been in an old house, and my house is an old house, and when we first moved in, one of our fireplaces was boarded up.
But every single one of them, like, that's weird.
Every single one, and there was, like, an absurd number.
Okay.
So she onboarded one, and she would, like, make these fires, and she would, like, become entranced by the fire.
Okay.
To the point where she would overheat in front of the fireplace, pass out, and, like, one time she almost passed out into the fire, and Roger had to, like, pull her away before she...
These people need to get out of here.
I know.
This is so weird.
It's weird. So, and also not to mention, it's on 200 acres of land. Like, it's a very isolated spot.
Yeah. It's not like they have a neighbor that can come check up on them super easily.
Well, there was one neighbor.
Okay.
And she's going to come in a second. But do you remember when we used to play school with your older sister as the teacher?
Yes.
And we were, like, and Grandma had that, like, old-fashioned desk in
the
basement. We would, like, do coloring pages and, like, our lettering pages.
Yes.
So the Perron girls did the same thing.
Oh, it's so fun.
I know.
We would also play church sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about that this weekend, my sister and I.
We would use the tortilla.
Yes.
As the euchre.
Which is, like, probably so, like, wrong. But, like, we thought it was so fun.
Do you remember I had, like, one famous quote from when we were playing church?
Oh, Jesus tastes like bread or something. What was it? It was something.
It was, you know how, like, tortillas have those, like, little brown
spots?
Yes.
You said, because they had the brown spots, and you're like, Jesus had lots of freckles or something.
I was like, I didn't know Jesus had freckles.
I forgot. We were such odd children.
I know, we really were, like...
That was fun for us, though.
But, like, creative, I guess.
I know, it makes our family sound so weird, but it's, like, we literally just thought it was fun.
Yeah, we used to put on, like, shows.
Oh, my God.
We were very creative kids when it came to...
entertaining ourselves.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We could entertain ourselves with, like, basically nothing.
Yeah, that's what we're doing right now, right?
Yeah. But,
So Jesus had freckles, anyway.
So Jesus did have freckles, but... So, Andrea was the teacher, and she would write lessons for, like, her, I guess, 4 little sisters. Okay. I don't know if April was old
Could
enough.
write yet,
I think she was at this point. But they would sometimes be like, oh, we need a snack, or we need, like, a little break.
Yeah.
And so they would all leave the room because no one went anywhere alone in this house.
Oh, my God.
And they would come back to this giant, like, oak-framed chalkboard, like one of those ones that you see in old-fashioned classrooms where you, like, flip it around. Mm-hmm. Like a big, standing, heavy chalkboard.
Right.
And they would come back, and it would be, like, smeared or sometimes, like, completely wiped and washed clean.
Okay, very
and
weird.
And they would only be there for, like, only be gone for, like, a few seconds.
Creepy. Very creepy.
So they started getting, like, really frustrated because they had taken the time to, like,
write out their fake
lesson.
Plans.
Yeah. So they moved it out to this woodshed, and it stopped being wiped clean.
Okay.
But then one day, they like came back and it had been smeared and rotated 90 degrees, which was weird because it wasn't like one of those ones that could wheel.
Okay.
It was like a standing one.
So that is very weird that it
had
been rotated.
Heavy.
Yeah.
So, and it was weird. So then they get frustrated, they leave, and Roger goes out to the woodshed and he finds the chalkboard completely shattered.
Oh.
Like broken. The frame, which is like this solid wood frame, was splintered. There's no way that any of the girls could have done this.
Yeah.
So he calls Andrea out to the woodshed and he's like, do you know what happened? She's like, absolutely not.
How do you even shatter chalkboard material? Like
not to mention slate.
Yeah.
Is like...
Yeah, this is probably
pretty
like
heavy. Yeah, it's like pretty... And it was pretty thick, I would have to think.
Especially back then.
So that was just a weird occurrence. A lot of people think that this was a statement from some of the ghosts that women shouldn't be going to school.
Oh!
So...
Interesting.
Sexism at its finest. And then one time in that same woodshed... they were playing that hide and clap game.
Oh Lord, yes.
Where
the famous
someone would be blindfolded and they would clap and then whoever was hiding would clap back, and it was basically like
almost like Marco Polo.
Yeah, almost like Marco Polo. So I believe it was Cindy that went out to the woodshed and was like, I'm gonna win this game.
Yeah.
So she crawled inside like this wood bin and she pulled pallet, like a wood pallet, on top.
Don't do it, girl.
And she realized after a little bit that they weren't going to find her.
Okay.
And even if they did come out into the wood shed, she wouldn't be able to hear them clapping.
Okay.
Because it was like a totally encased box. Like
a coffin, if you will.
Yes. No holes, like nothing. So it's starting to get hot in there and she's starting to kind of like... suffocate a little
I was gonna
bit.
say, the oxygen would be dwindling at this point.
So she goes to push it off.
Let me guess.
And it's super heavy. And she can't get out.
So
she starts to panic, and eventually someone hears her, like, banging
Thank
the box.
God.
And comes and easily lifts the pallet off the box. It was like, why didn't you just push your way out?
Yeah.
She was like,
I couldn't. Okay.
So, weird.
Concerning.
This is... one of the scariest things that I think happened.
Okay.
Carolyn went out to the barn, so we know the barn, supposedly someone hung themselves in there.
Right.
To see if it could house animals, because she was like...
Because it's the barn.
Yeah. She's like, I'd like to have a few goats.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely freezing outside, so she bundles herself up in this big leather jacket and like 4 other layers.
Okay.
And... she walks in and she sees this like hand scythe hanging from the rafters.
What's a hand scythe?
So imagine that like curved blade that the Grim Reaper is usually seen, but like a little handheld version.
Okay, cute.
Well, so she like goes and she's like, okay, cool, like we could probably house animals in here. So she turns around to leave the barn and she hears like fluttering. And she thinks it's like maybe a bird or like a bat. Yeah. So she like turns around and the scythe is spinning in midair and like chopping on its own. And she goes to like walk or like I guess run probably out of the barn, and her feet are absolutely rooted to the ground. Can't move her feet.
Like in Scooby-Doo where they're just like running in place because they're so scared.
Except that she cannot physically lift her feet off the ground.
Oh Lord.
And the scythe flies towards her. Like, full velocity, too.
It's like a ninja star.
Yes. And it slices against her neck and shoulder.
Oh, wow. So now it's getting really violent.
Yes. And had she not been wearing that thick leather jacket, it probably would have cut her throat.
Oh, wow.
So she had a huge bruise, like, on her collarbone area from where the scythe hit her. And the jacket was completely ripped up, the collar.
Oh, wow.
And so obviously she was very shaken up. But this would begin kind of a series of violent assaults against Carolyn.
In particular? Okay.
Yes. So one day, the neighbors, the Pettigrews, brought over a pie because Roger was out of town. And they were like, we'll go be friendly neighbors.
Okay.
And Andrea let them in, and she was like, oh, sorry, my mom's in the shower. So she went up to go let her mom know that they had visitors. And so obviously Carolyn gets out of the shower, and she's immediately assaulted by a levitating coat hanger in the exact same place at the site that hit her.
Oh, wow, okay.
So obviously someone's going for
the jugular.
Going for the jugular.
Yes.
And so she screams, and all the kids and the Pettigrews come up and they witness.
They see it?
They witness this.
Wow.
So before the Pettigrews excuse themselves, because obviously they want to get the hell out of this house, they tell Carolyn that the Kinneans, the previous owners, had left the lights on every night.
Okay.
So they were like, maybe
there it is again.
Help.
Yeah.
So this next one gets me.
Okay.
Have you watched The Haunting of Hill House?
Yes. It was terrifying.
Do you remember the bent neck lady?
Yes, that was the part that was particularly terrifying.
Okay, good. I'm glad you think so.
Oh, no.
So, Carolyn and Roger are sleeping in their bed, and Carolyn is like awoken by the sound of footsteps, and she thinks it's one of her kids coming in, because I'm sure that was a regular occurrence in this house, because if Cindy's sleeping in a room and she hears there are 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall every night, I'd be sleeping with my mom and dad too.
Agreed.
So she reaches out her hand to like help whatever child it is into bed, and she doesn't feel anything. So she opens her eyes, and there is a woman with a crooked neck levitated over her. And it obviously had a crooked neck, and they called this the Crooked Neck Lady.
I'm wondering if this is where the show got the idea for this.
She had no face, just a swirl of flesh.
Stop.
She smelled like rotten meat.
Yum.
Gross. Carolyn is completely frozen in fear, so she tries to kick Roger, and her foot connects with his back, and he's like ice cold and completely limp. So she thinks
he's dead.
The spirit has killed him. So she like inches backwards and presses herself against the headboard and says, "God help me." And at the same time, she grabs the blanket and like goes to shield her face, because this thing is right up in her face.
Oh my God.
And by doing that, she reveals Roger's torso, and it has been completely scratched and clawed.
Oh my God.
And by saying, "God help me," she like, after she sees Roger's torso, she turns back and the entity is gone.
Okay.
So she thinks that and the parents were not religious.
Okay.
So she thinks that might have vanquished it.
Breathe in and wonder, is this
what the fuck?
Where's the remote?
What the fuck? It's... Sorry about that, guys. Our TV just turned itself on to a YouTube video of the demonic possession of Annabelle the doll.
To be fair, it was already on that, but the TV was, we weren't, like, the TV had gone to sleep, and it was, the remote was, like, on our little coffee table, so the remote was not near any of us, but this TV is a little wonky sometimes.
It is a little
So
wonky.
I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, but it was terrifying.
I am too, but that actually scared me.
And also, the ad that came on was, like, for, like, that nicotine,
yeah, like, Scared Senseless
yeah,
or whatever it is.
And it was, like, a creepy, like, jingling sound, so that was a little scary.
Very scary.
We're back.
Anyway, so that entity that was with the crooked neck vanished, but all the clocks in the house had stopped at 5:15 a.m.
Weird.
Yep. Also at 5:15 a.m., they have some record of the girls' beds being levitated and shaken.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So 5:15 a.m. was a
the time.
Yeah.
The witching hour.
I think in the movie it's like 3:07 a.m.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, I always thought that the witching hour or whatever was like at 3 or something.
I think it's 3 a.m.
Okay.
And I think it's from 2 to 3.
Okay.
But anyway. So, Bathsheba, let's talk about her, because she is a main character in the film, and also it was a little bit weird that they named their dog Bathsheba.
Yes.
Because one of the entities in the house
was named
Bathsheba.
Really?
Yes. She is the main, dare I say, villain of the Conjuring.
Okay. The antagonist,
yes.
perhaps?
And she was actually a real person named Bathsheba Sherman who lived in Rhode Island. She was born in 1812 in Rhode Island. She married someone named Judson Sherman.
Judson.
And she gave birth to one known son named Herman.
Okay.
Which his name was Herman Sherman.
That's so funny. Herman Sherman. I love
Sherman. That. She had at least 3 other children that died before the age of 1.
Oh, wow. That's really sad.
It's really sad.
Typical of the time.
No.
No?
No. So Bathsheba was a character. So you really don't know anything about this case?
No.
Okay. So Bathsheba was a caretaker, and an infant died in her care. So like a next door neighbor, she was basically babysitting, and the kid that she was babysitting died.
Okay.
The cause of death, which I'm gonna give a little trigger warning here, was impalement at the base of its skull. So right here,
wow.
with a tiny sharp instrument that was thought to be a sewing needle.
Okay.
So the trial, there was a trial.
Of course.
She was never found innocent or guilty, but the entire case was dismissed.
Why?
Don't know. But the town couldn't let that go, obviously.
Yeah, they're not going to let that slide.
So they blamed her. They called her a witch. And she was thought to have sacrificed her 3 other children to the devil.
Why did she do that to that little baby?
They don't know if she did.
Okay.
Which I'm like, who? If not her, then who else?
And it died. The baby died while they were being babysat by her, right?
Yes.
So I mean,
It
either
kind
way,
of
wouldn't
adds
she
up.
kind of be? Wouldn't she be responsible either way?
Yeah. But anyway, so in the movie, she is said to have either, I think, she hung herself or was hung on the property. But in real life, she did die of old age.
Okay.
Although some people say that after she died, her body literally turned to stone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Bathsheba supposedly was in love with Roger and interacted positively with him.
Oh,
so she would,
interesting.
Stroke his hair, low-key kind of try to seduce him.
She caught feels.
Yes. But she hated Carolyn because she was with Roger and she wanted to be the only mistress.
Okay.
So Carolyn had one day where she was either napping or just sitting on the sofa, and she felt this sharp pain in the back of her calf.
Okay.
And she thought that she had been stung by a bee, so she literally checked the entire room.
Yeah.
There's no bees. She checked the ground. She pulled the couch out from the wall. No sharp objects, nothing.
Okay.
So she checks the back of her calf, and it's bleeding profusely.
Ooh.
And she goes and she cleans it up, and there's this small round puncture mark.
Like a needle?
Like a needle.
Okay.
Carolyn, in particular, was tortured by a spirit that is thought to be Bathsheba.
Okay.
It is not confirmed that
Okay.
this was Bathsheba. A little bit incriminating that she was seen to be pricked by a needle.
Yeah, right?
But here is where the big dogs come in.
Okay.
And Lorraine Warren. They hear about this case through a friend, and they contact the parents because they want to take on this investigation. Mm-hmm. It was Lorraine who actually made the connection between the hauntings and the real-life Bathsheba.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yes. So, supposedly, the Warrens' presence in the house made the paranormal activity ramp up.
Okay.
Which is, not surprising to me, because here are these 2 world-renowned demonologists. Mm-hmm. And these demons are probably
cool, someone we can communicate with.
Someone we can communicate with, but also, let's show off.
Yeah, let's show what we can do.
The big dogs are here.
Exactly.
So, they diagnosed this as a case of demonic infestation.
Ooh.
The Warrens were religious and the parents were not.
Okay.
And so, demons is inherently a religious term. The term demons.
Okay.
Because you can refer to a malevolent spirit, and that's something completely different than a demon.
Okay.
So a spirit is a soul that was once human.
Okay.
Right? So, I guess your soul, right?
So,
it's your soul.
So basically, the ghosts at the Gettysburg House,
yes.
for example, the Farnsworth Inn were spirits because they used to be
once
humans.
existed. the term demon refers to a fallen angel or like one that has scorned God.
That was never a human.
That was never human and turned Satan.
Okay, got it.
Because the family was not Catholic, they could not have an exorcism performed on the house. Which is, I think, so silly.
Yeah, I'm shocked by that.
Because it would have required A, a police presence, and B, permission from the Vatican.
Okay, wow.
For whatever, I guess it's a special case.
Okay.
So apparently that was going to take too long, so the Warrens threw that out. I don't know if this was later that this blessing came, but Ed Warren is the only lay person, so person that's not a priest or like a religious figure, to receive permission from the Catholic Church to perform an exorcism.
And it was in this house?
No, I don't. I would think it's after this.
Wow.
So that's a scene that's a little bit different from the movie, because in the movie they do perform an exorcism on the house and on Carolyn. Okay. But in real life they did a seance instead.
Oh, okay.
So this is, if you know anything about this case, it's probably this seance.
Okay.
So they held it in the dining room, and they had a priest, a medium, and a technical crew. And then, of course, the Warrens and Roger and Carolyn. Mm-hmm. And they sent the girls to bed because they were like, you don't need to be seeing this.
I'm shocked that they let them stay in the house.
I know. I would get my kids out of there.
I'd be like, go to a hotel.
But Andrea and one of the other girls, I believe it was Cindy, watched through like
not
a crack
surprising.
in the door.
Yeah.
So the medium reaches out and she's like, any spirits that are here, feel free to like come through and make contact with us. Immediately, there's like a mental and physical assault on Carolyn.
Oh, wow.
So she opens her mouth and like starts speaking in this non-existent language.
Tongues.
And here's a quote, direct quote from Andrea Perron. I thought I was going to pass out. My mother began to speak a language not of this world in a voice not her own. Her chair levitated and she was thrown across the room. So they threw her from the dining room into the parlor where she like crumpled against a wall.
Oh, wow.
And so Andrea witnessed Roger, who's the father, go to her, like try to go to her mother's aid. Ed Warren grabbed him and pulled him back, and then Roger like open-handed smacked Ed across the face and was like, let me go to my wife.
Wow.
And obviously like I don't think Ed would have like held that against him.
Yeah,
like,
no.
She said that everyone in that room knew that whatever entity it was had the ability to kill and could have if it wanted to, but the intent was to scare.
Okay.
So the Warrens were asked to leave, obviously, because of this failed seance. The parents didn't blame them, per se, but Roger was, like, scared to death for his wife's safety.
Okay.
But after the seance, the spirits were subdued.
Okay.
So not as many, like, violent interactions, like those entities that were appearing to Carolyn were gone. So it was just kind of like the doors creaking open.
Okay.
Went
Little
back to what
again.
it originally was, yes. But Carolyn began to like waste away and stopped taking care of herself. She stopped eating, she stopped sleeping, like was really the shell of a human being.
Oh man.
And she had this one interaction where she walked into the dining room and she saw like a group, like a family sitting at the table, and it wasn't her family, and it did not look like it was decorated like their dining room.
Okay.
But it was the same room. So she made eye contact with one of the men sitting at the table, who then in turn like went to touch another member of his family and pointed her out to the other man. And she realized that to them she was the ghost. Okay.
Wow.
So then
that's trippy.
That made her come to a realization that this house was a portal that had been opened, and that she needed to like take care of herself and get her kids the hell out of there.
Okay. That was like her wake up call.
Yeah, she became to come back into herself and take care of herself. So, ultimately, the Perrons declined earnings from the movie deal with the Warrens.
Wow.
And they do, based on different accounts, again, say that the Perrons, specifically Andrea, has different feelings about the movies.
Okay.
So, some of them say that she absolutely loves it.
Okay.
And thinks that, like, you know, obviously she understands that Hollywood is a different animal. And, like, obviously
of course
they need to do what sells.
Yes.
But she also said that she never for a second felt like they were stifling
making
her.
things up.
Exactly. So she has watched this movie and she said it is about 1% of 1% of everything that happened. And she said that James Wan, who's the director of the movie, toned down everything that happened in the movie to make it a PG-13 rating.
Wow.
Ultimately, it does have an R rating.
Okay.
Which he was, like, very upset about.
Yeah.
But obviously, like, even the material, as, like, toned down as it might be,
is terrifying.
Known to be one of the scariest movies of all time.
Yes.
So.
Wow.
So the parents moved out after 10 years. So from the time in 1973 to the seance, after that, there weren't really any violent encounters.
Okay.
So
the seance obviously did something.
I guess it released a demon.
Okay.
From the house, right? That makes sense, right?
Even though it wasn't an exorcism, it was just a seance.
I have no idea. But after those 10 years, they sold it to a woman named Norma Sutcliffe.
Okay.
Who does report that there is a lot of paranormal activity in the house. There's apparently her walls shake.
Ooh.
She sees a lot of orbs, which we've talked about before. You can catch on camera, which she just saw them floating
around with her naked eye.
Noises, doors opening and closing, everything like that. But she said it's become a lot more dormant since the parents have moved out.
Okay.
The parents have since moved into another house. Obviously, they're all grown up now and living on their own. But after this, they did move into a new house. Some of the paranormal activity did follow them to their new house. Okay. Which is kind of scary.
Yeah, they couldn't get rid of it even when they moved.
But I guess at this point, it had become like second nature to them.
They probably wouldn't even notice.
Probably didn't blink an eye. So, but they continue to this day to defend Bathsheba and say that she was possibly not the violent entity in the house.
I mean, for all they know, she could have been the one, like, tucking the little girl into bed and
Exactly.
stuff.
There's no record that she ever, like, killed any of those kids.
Okay.
And, there's no reason for her to be violent, so they defend her.
Okay. Because, women in the days that Bathsheba was alive were very mistreated. I mean, of course they're going to say she's a witch.
Obviously. Like, Carolyn back in the 1970s was accused of being a witch over a misunderstanding, a mishap.
Exactly.
So they think that it could have possibly been Mrs. Arnold.
Oh, the 90-year-old?
Yes.
Woo, Granny's
because
got.
When she appeared, the quote-unquote Bathsheba, she was super old. Oh. Which would line up with the 93-year-old.
So that does. Yeah.
Weird. And then when the parents moved out, some of the girls wanted to stay.
Why?
It was like home to them.
Wow.
And like, obviously after all the violent encounters were done,
they were like, if it had been like however many years since then, maybe they were just like,
they're just like, why don't we stay? And this had become such like a big part of their life.
Yeah.
But they did move.
Good. Probably for the best.
Andrea, you know how I said she has like the proceeds from her book? Mm-hmm. She wants to buy the house eventually.
Wow. Yeah. I wonder how old she is now.
Well, she was
probably in her 50s or early 60s.
9 in the 70s. She's probably in her early 60s.
Wow, okay.
Crazy.
Wow, she's going to rebuy it. That's crazy.
I know. So, when this movie was being made, they brought in Lorraine Warren, who actually does make a cameo.
Oh, she does?
Real Lorraine Warren makes a cameo.
Ooh.
And they brought in her as like a consultant. Uh-huh. And the actress that plays Lorraine Warren in the movie woke up one night and had 3 scratches across her chest.
Oh.
And she consulted the real Lorraine, who confirmed that the demons were trying to scare her because they didn't want the movie to be made.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that scary?
Yeah.
She said, don't let it get to you. They're just trying to scare you.
Oh my gosh.
Scary.
It would have worked on me. I'd be like, never mind.
I would have been like, I don't need to be a
Going back to my day job. I know, right?
Yeah. So, the final little thing that's happened with the house is that in June 2019, it was sold to Corey and Jennifer Heinzen. There's still small phenomena, obviously, that happen in the house, and they lend it out nightly to paranormal investigators.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it was like a...
So it's
a business deal, basically.
Yes,
okay.
It has become a...
This place will be a haunted bed and breakfast in a decade, I'm telling you.
Probably. It's become like a little bit of a tourist
place.
Locale.
Okay.
Yes. But anyway, that is the story of the Arnold Estate.
That is way scarier than I would have ever even imagined originally.
Horror movies that are based on a true story scare me
in a different
significantly
way.
More than like
just because you know what happened. And exactly. And like looking at all the facts, like it does seem like I don't think that this family would make it up. Like
I don't either.
I mean, this is like specific. Like this is so specific, and there are so many stories. That's terrifying.
It's pretty terrifying.
And the fact that they stay there for 10 years, even though obviously the hauntings got, amped down a bit after the seance, the fact that they still stayed for that long is crazy.
It is crazy to me.
Wow.
But do whatever floats your boat, I guess.
I know.
If you're willing to stay in that house, props to
them. Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see if they end up buying it back.
Some part of me hopes that they do.
It could be kind of cool, like a full circle.
Well, I hope Andrea Perron does end up as the owner of this house.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if the paranormal activity would ramp up.
I was just thinking that.
Right?
I was just about to say that. I wonder if it would become active again if she moved back in.
We're gonna have to wait and find out, I guess.
I hope we find out one day. But
until then,
keep an eye out for our sister episode.
Coming out soon.
Absolutely. And keep subscribing to our Patreon because we've got some good episodes dropping soon. We've got a whole new series on there.
Yes.
You're not going to want to miss it, especially during
spooky season.
Get those extra spooks in. But this has been, I wish I could say, a delight.
But it's been terrifying.
Shitless, so.
I know, especially after that TV incident.
I am very shaken up. Let's watch a happy.
Let's go watch Friday the 13th.
Oh,
it's a lot less. Or wait, Nightmare on Elm Street. Which
Friday the 13th.
Yeah, Friday the 13th. Yeah, that's a little less. I think that's less scary compared to the Conjuring.
It's definitely going to be a little bit of comedic relief.
I could use that.
All right,
let's go do that.
Let's do that. Bye, everyone.
We'll see you next time. Have a good night. I don't know why I said have a good night.
Don't let Bathsheba bite.